We found out that you all know each other. You knew each other before college, and that is so amazing. So we want to know, first of all, how did you get into the same sport? How did you find that sport that was your passion? And how did you end up meeting each other?
All right, everyone, welcome back to another great episode of Let's Move Canada. We're your hosts, Dana and Luigi from the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute. And on today's episode of Let's Move Canada, we will be talking with former Division One NCAA athletes Meimei Weston, Sharelle Samuel, and Keira Christie-Galloway about what inspires them and what being healthy means to them. Now, keep in mind that all of these amazing guests are returning, so we'll have a little brief intro for them. But before we get to that, let me start by saying that this podcast is brought to you by the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute, whose mission is to make Canada the fittest nation on earth by 2030. Now, to this end, of course, our podcast aims to raise awareness about physical and mental health. So now, let me introduce our podcast guests. So first up, we have Meimei, a Harvard University graduate with a remarkable journey in both athletics and academics. Now, last time, she shared her inspiring transition from competitive running to rowing at Harvard and how she balances academics and athletics. And since then, she's taken on new challenges, including a fellowship in Norway focused on clean energy policy. Now, that was at the time. And she's here today to tell us what she's up to. Next, we're excited to welcome back Keira Christie-Galloway to the podcast. And now, last time, she shared her journey as a record-breaking hurdler and her experience competing at the NCAA and international levels. Now, since then, she has transitioned from competitive track to a balanced, active lifestyle, staying involved in fitness through Pilates and run clubs. Of course, she's going to continue. She's going to update us. She's going to tell us what she's been up to. And last but not least, never least, we're excited to welcome back Sharelle Samuel. Now, last time, she shared her journey from a multi-sport childhood in Ottawa to competing in the 400 meters and 400 meters hurdles at Harvard and representing Athletics Canada internationally. And since then, she's continued her passion from active living and community building while staying involved in track and field. Now, that was a mouthful, everyone. Now, with that being said, Sharelle, Keira, and Meimei, welcome back. We're so happy to have you.
Good to be back, Luigi and Dana. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, it is so good to be back.
We're so happy. Okay, so we're just going to go right in. And we found out that you all know each other. You knew each other before college, and that is so amazing. So we want to know, first of all, how did you get into the same sport? How did you find that sport that was your passion? And how did you end up meeting each other?
So I can jump in first. So before track, I did gymnastics. And then from there, didn't really know what to do next. My family still wanted me to be active, so they put me in track and field with Ottawa Lions, and that's where I met these two lovely ladies.
Yeah. I think I was always a super active and hyper child. I always wanted to do sport, so I would just do like the school teams. And so before I actually joined track, I did competitive cheerleading for 3 years. And then like I would always get that paper like join Ottawa Lions. And so I finally did the summer of ninth grade, and I met Kira first, and then I met Meimei later on.
I would say I started running when I could barely walk because I had to get away from my brothers to save myself. So I was pretty active early on. We're an active family. And so I've always been involved in sports, whether it be basketball, field hockey, soccer. Eventually, everyone joins all the sports when you're young, and uh, I proved to do pretty well in running, so I just continued that and joined the competitive club Ottawa Lions, where again I met these Sharelle and Kira.
Can you tell us what is Ottawa Lions like a community club, or how do you get involved in that?
It's a competitive running club, so it's paid, and it meets at the Moonies Bay Track and Field facility, which is close to downtown Ottawa.
Okay, cool.
So it's pretty different from an after school program. I know like for Canada, we usually start training for track. It's not all year round. It's more so like when track season's about to start, they're like, okay,
let's start running. So this is just an opportunity to train like all year round, more competitively.
Yeah, like I think in comparison to US schools, they kind of the school will take on that ownership of kind of training their athletes all year round versus in Canada, you kind of have to join a track and field club outside of
Mm,
school if you want to be training
Mhm.
all year round and stay in that competitive level.
Mhm.
gotcha. So what was the schedule like for you guys? I mean, you're not in school, you're outside of school, and you're meeting, like how often do you meet, and what were these times together like?
Yeah, so going from gymnastics, I was trained, I think 24 hours a week or something like that, but I wasn't even in middle school yet, so it was pretty intense. And then going to track, it was I think I was doing 4 times a week and like one
Oh,
Saturday practice at like from like 9 a.m. to I don't know,
Wow.
11 or something like that. So it was pretty competitive quickly for me.
Yeah, I would say for myself, and I know Kira would always be on me about this. I was probably 3 times a week, sometimes 2 times a week. I actually wasn't that consistent. I did also kind of join late, so I joined the summer of my ninth grade, and then I went back again during my 11th grade of high school, and so like that year was like my full on year in grade 12. But yeah, I was probably 3 times a week, so twice during the school week, once on Saturdays. Again, hours were about like 2 hours for practice, nothing too much.
Ottawa Lions, I was training with them 3 times a week, but I was doing many sports always at once. So I was always competing in in one sport or another. I would say 6 days a week. So
mhm.
one rest day and 6 days of sports.
Wow, I love that. I love that you were able to
And,
explore a bunch of different sports. I feel like I went from gymnastics to track, and that's all I've done. So that's cool.
Not competitively, I would say it was more like the sports teams at school through high school, which I really enjoyed. It was like my social time. It was how I decompressed from anything else going on in life. But yeah, sports, I always loved joining the sports teams when I could. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having a different outlet and just doing a different sport actually helped
mhm.
me weirdly, strangely. I remember like when I did competitive cheerleading as well, like when I did the track season that school year, like I don't know, it just like makes you a different athlete. You work different muscles and such. And
No, absolutely. And how did you decide where to pursue your sport? I mean, I think at some point, I know that for example, for you, Meimei, there probably was some moving around, right? So how did how does that factor in?
yeah, so for me, I my dream was actually to pursue soccer for many, many years. I was on the OSU, the Ottawa South United team, and I tried out for the provincial team, made it, and then got cut. And after I got cut, that was also a time when I had to decide whether I could only do one competitive sport because they were completely overlapping with the training schedules. And when I got cut from the soccer team, that's when I decided to pursue track. I thought I would have more success in cross country and track. I'm a distance runner, and Sharelle and Keira are sprinters. I wish I had those fast twitch muscles in me, but I do not. But yeah, I guess that was a big transitioning period for me. So I continued with track and cross country throughout high school and then first year into university. Um, I incurred many, many injuries near the end of that time. And that forced me into another transition period where I was deciding whether or not to continue in competitive sports.
Mhm.
I ended up I had a really good friend who took me under his wing and encouraged me to try out rowing. So I reached out to the Harvard rowing coach, and I never looked back from there. I competed in rowing for the following 4 years at Harvard,
Oh,
and so I had two major transition periods, I would say, in my competitive athletic life.
I'll say I was always kind of like fast. So similar to Mimi, I did like a lot of sports teams, basketball, soccer, ultimate, volleyball, et cetera, et cetera. But like something that always stood out was that I was always fast. I did cross country way back when, then decided it wasn't for me. But I would always do the 400 and long jump, and it was just something that I would found like fun and easy for those like little elementary school day meets. So eventually, like when I kept getting the auto lines we were like join, I was like, okay, you know what? Like I did do cheer for a while. Like why not try and like pursue track at a higher level and try training for that? And honestly, like me joining track wasn't even like, oh, like I'm gonna use this to go away to school. Like kind of just all fell into place. I will say having amazing people to look up to and like help guide me. Keira, you're definitely one of them. Through that process, definitely like helped inspire me and open my eyes to so many more opportunities. And so after joining, kind of seeing that I was progressing fairly well and fairly competitively within track and field, that's where I was like, okay, maybe this is where I'm meant to be.
I will say as well with Sharelle, it was really frustrating when I was first getting to know her because I remember I would at all of the final meets, like the provincial competitions, OFSA in Ontario, we have OFSA, and that's like pretty much equivalent. It's almost equivalent to Canadian nationals because our provincials are uh, the most one of the most, if not the most, competitive provincial competition out of all of the provinces in Canada. And I remember starting to see her over and over and hear her name more and more. So I would go up to her and start talking with her. And she just seemed so unserious about the sport. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm running like 5 events today, just like having fun." And here I was training my butt off all week long, and Sharelle was just plopping in and winning all of her races. And I know we're all doing very well at that time, but there was just a difference in levels of dedication to the sport at that time, I would say. Yeah.
Very much so. Like when I say I was very serious, I did not know it was gonna hit me when I went away to school. Yeah, I was just very fortunate and lucky when it came to track. But like, yeah, Mimi said, I was not that serious, honestly.
I love hearing your experiences. It seems like, we always think of athletes as being so serious and just always working so hard, right? But I love through the both of you seeing a little bit of a range in the experience, right? The Sharelle who seems to be having a lot of fun, and you're saying that it sounds serious, but it sounds like you're still winning races, you're still enjoying yourself, you're still picking
She
what's fun.
was.
And Meimei is just is working hard and really pushing herself. So you do have those different experiences as an athlete, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. And I still loved pushing hard, but just yeah.
It's natural the journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Keira? Anything to share with on that point?
Yeah, so for me, I would say I was kind of like a combination of both Meimei and Sharelle. So I did gymnastics competitively, and I would say that's the first sport I was ever put into. Like as a child, I pretty early on, I think I was probably like 6 or 7, and I kept with that. And it got serious pretty quickly. Like I was going, like my family was paying for camps for me to go to. I was traveling across Ontario, going to different meets.
Wow.
So it did get pretty competitive, and then I burned out. I was like, what, like I think I was like 9 or 10, and I was like, I just don't want to do it
Wow.
anymore.
Well, yeah. Oh my
Which
God.
is
So
why I
young to
think
burn out.
doing so many different sports is so important, and not
Mhm.
specializing too quickly is so important in my opinion, because I was burnt out by like 10, and I was like, I didn't even want to go to practice anymore. And my family had already invested so much in me doing this sport. But I was fast. So my family's like, why don't you try track? And then I just went straight into track and then got pretty competitive pretty quickly. And I was training. I didn't have any time to try other sports out because I was training 4 times a week, and then went up to 5, and then went away
Wow.
to school. So I wish I got more of that time to really try different things out. But I am happy. I love track, so it kind of, it worked out in my favor.
Yeah, so okay, so cool. So can each of you tell us what the most challenging thing you ever faced in your sport journey, the most challenging thing, and also the most exciting thing that ever happened? Or wants to start?
I can definitely like the first thing that popped in my head was the most challenging was when I was winning. Like before going to school, I was at OFSA too. I was winning, I was breaking records. Everything was fairly not easy, but it was coming to me
Mhm.
pretty easily. Obviously through my hard work and training that I was doing, but I knew there would be a point where I wasn't going to be winning anymore. And I just wanted to see how I was really going to like handle that. So like at the back of my head, I knew like it's not always going to be this easy. And how am I going to handle it when there are challenges? And then when I did get to the NCAA, and I didn't have like the easiest time. It was hard to get through that. So I would say that was probably the most challenging, like knowing that one day it's not going to be easy and how are you going to like really handle
So
that?
how did you get through it? How did you handle it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the way that I handled it was through different hobbies, not focusing all my time on track, but really
Mm.
diversifying who I am as a person. And that helped me like compartmentalize and decompress when I was like outside of the track world. And that really carried me through. And then eventually I got out of that slump and then was able to pursue and do other things in the track world, make NCAAs and stuff like that. So that's how I handled that. I would say the most exciting time was probably the first time I ever competed for Team Canada at an international level. It was in 2015. I think I was 15. Was I or 2017? I might have been 17. I think I was 17. But
Mhm.
it was in Columbia. And I remember just going out, the crowd was going crazy. Sadie McLaughlin was there. It was a pretty big meet. And just feeling so nervous, but also focused, and then just getting through the race. And it just felt, you just feel so much adrenaline. So I'd say that's for me.
Amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, I think similarly, I would say one of the more challenging things for me was, I mean, as you've heard, was not that serious in the track, unfortunately, in high school and training wise. So when I did go to this school in the US and started training like more intensely, way more hours, way more times a week,
Mhm.
and then I wasn't getting the results that I had when I like was barely trying. I guess that was my biggest frustration, and just like overcome that. Like I'm literally putting in so much work. I've never put in this much work in my life.
Mhm.
I am so much worse by myself as an athlete, right? So I think that was like the hardest thing to kind of like what is going on here? Like it should be
Mhm.
me getting better results. That and then I would say like later on in combination of like getting injuries and overcoming those. But yeah, that was truly
How
like
did
one of
you
the
deal with all that? How did you deal
Yeah.
with that feeling of like, I was
yeah,
so easy, I just showed up and won and and yeah.
Yeah, I would say, so unfortunately, like it was a similar experience for some of my teammates. So we all would like talk about it together, but then also
Mhm.
similar to what Kira was saying, I had other hobbies and other things that I was also passionate about. So not trying to put all my focus and energy constantly into track. And then it also kind of reminded me of like, hey, like when I was in high school and kind of just having fun and going free flowing with it, I was also still doing a bunch of other things as well. And so maybe I need to like kind of like refocus and shift and go back to that kind of similar energy of like not putting so much pressure and energy into the track and just obviously couldn't change the amount of times I was training and like how many hours I was there, but trying to like refocus my energy and kind of like I guess distract myself in a
Hmm.
sense. I think that really helped me to kind of like readjust and like pivot and then retransition when we went back after COVID and whatnot. And then I would say, or I'm like freezing. I would say,
We're back.
um, one of my highlights would be also making my first team and getting to represent Team Canada. That was in 2017, and it was the Youth Commonwealth Games in the Bahamas.
Oh,
That
so
was so
cool.
exciting. I remember going for the 400, and then we were there, and they only had one 400 hurdler. They're like, "You did decently at nationals," and at that point, I was going to quit the 400 hurdles because I was like, "It's too much of a mental game." But they're
Mhm.
like, "You did decent, so like you're here already. Like we only have one person, so we're putting you in it too." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But then I actually ended up running decent in it. So I was like, oh, okay. So it was like a pivotal moment in that sense of the event. And also like the meet in and of itself was also very fun.
So that gave you some motivation to keep going.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful.
Amazing. How about you, Mimi?
I definitely had a different journey than these two. Um, my my most challenging period, I would say was a more extended period of time. Um, I was winning and was top in Canada for the 1500 and the 3000, 1 and 2, alternating based off the race, with two other girls, Brogan and Jocelyn. And I went to the Bahamas with Sharelle as well, representing Canada for Team Canada for the 3000 meters. And I was doing really well. And at this point, especially going to the Bahamas and representing Canada and getting a fully paid for trip in the Bahamas for like 5 days or a week or however long it was, and all of this really cool Canada gear, I was like, this is what I want to do, and this is my dream. And I'd gone to watch the 2010 Olympics in Whistler, and then like since then that it was my dream to go to the Olympics, and then it just felt like going to the Bahamas. I felt like everything was falling into place at a very young age. And I also felt like I was gifted this talent that not many people have. It's a mix of physical, mental talent, as well as the support and the resources that people have access to. And everything was in place for me. So I truly felt like I was meant to go to the Olympics for Canada. And that's when everything started falling apart for me.
Oh,
so,
wow.
After making it on the Team Canada, I got injured, my first major injury. I had a stress fracture in the neck of my femur, which if a stress fracture in that area becomes serious enough, a full fracture, then you have to get hip replacement, and you may never run again in your life. That happened twice to me. I had 2 stress fractures there, and I had 6 stress fractures in my metatarsals, in my toe bones. And that all happened over the period of 4.5 years. So for 4.5 years, I was training on my own every day, and following a rigorous training plan as if I was going to get better and get back on the team. And I still got recruited, and every time I came back from my injury, I was doing really well because I was still training really hard. I had the most supportive track coach I could have ever wished for, Kirk Dillabaugh from Glebe Collegiate Institute. He had me in the Glebe pool at 6 a.m. before school started. I was water running, so I was still getting like the physical motion of running and keeping up a very high level of fitness so that I could hit the ground running truthfully when I got back from my injuries. But it was a combination of a few different things. My bones had low density. So every time I came back to running, I would get injured again within a matter of a few weeks or months.
Oh, that's so hard. That would be so hard.
Yeah, it was really hard because I also had so many people who were supporting me and pouring a lot of resources and faith into me. And I wanted it so badly. It was my dream. And so, it just felt like, okay, I just one more injury, I'll get back into it. I'll change a few things, and it just wouldn't change. And so after a year in university of, again, training on my own every single day, which was very isolating when I had moved countries, I was on my own, figuring out the medical situation, the system in a different country. And getting the same news of like, actually, when I moved to the US, I was cared for differently in that I had to get a bone density test, which I'd never gotten before. And I had to take hormones, and the doctors, the specialists who were top in the world were telling me that I shouldn't be running anymore for a little bit of time. Otherwise, I could incur osteoporosis later in my life.
Oh my goodness.
So Yeah, so that was the hardest period of like not I would say coming to terms with having to step back from running,
Mm-hmm.
which had been a dream for me for so long. Um, but I will say that it was also a blessing because I I would say with running, I didn't have the healthiest relationship with exercise and with food, and that affected my life on the day to day. And
Mm-hmm.
taking a step back from running allowed me to deal with those issues. And I joined rowing, which during which it was a time period where I met some amazing women and I was able to do a little bit of like a different thing in life that was still very fulfilling. And that was just a matter of shifting perspectives and shifting my goals. And that's okay. It's really okay. Like that's I had to evolve with the punches that life threw me. So it's definitely not all bad. And when I tell that story, it sounds a little bit depressing, but for me, it was not because I was able to transition my mindset around who I was. That was a matter of changing how I thought of my identity about who I am and where my value lies as well. It doesn't just lie in going to the Olympics.
Wow, Mimi, that
Love
was,
that.
whew.
That's
I mean,
deep.
Sorry,
that's
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 a
hard. I
lot.
mean, that
very
was like
chilling.
heartbreaking, but I know it's what you're saying. It's like it did put kind of change the direction for you into something where
Mm-hmm.
you are very grateful to be in at the same time, right? Like growing and meeting amazing people and where you are now, which we'll get to. But yeah, that is you persevered for a very long time.
It was a long time.
Quite a
Hmm.
long time, right? And I think for me, I love the common theme that with each of your stories, both in challenges and highlights, where at some point you do need to recenter, you need to come back to yourself, take your attention off of something that you want so badly into these other parts of yourself um, that are also important, right? So I love that theme of rebalancing, recentering, and I love that that pushes you in the next chapter of your life, whether it's in the same sport or in a different sport, so that you can evolve as an individual, right? So with that, it kind of has us thinking, how do you think athletes can move beyond their dreams once they have attached their identity so much to athletic success?
Yeah, that I was just about to bring that up too. So Maymay, I've never heard your full story, so thank you for sharing that. I definitely see a common theme with your identity in sports
Mm-hmm.
and how like tied up it can get. And you know what you're doing, you do something every day, it becomes your main focus.
Right.
But for me personally, just knowing that I'm multidimensional was like a huge thing for me. Like I'm not just track and field, but I'm so many other things, and I have so many other like interests and hobbies, and things that I'm good at in life. So that for me was something I really like hung on to, and I think it's so important for all athletes to explore other sides of them. And when I have kids one day, have family, and if my kids get into competitive sports, I think that's something I will definitely stress, just having been an athlete myself.
Mm-hmm.
Kira, I'm curious what your other dimensions were when you were at your peak competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my other things that I was really into, I love journaling, cooking, baking. So these are just things that I do to like get my mind off whatever I'm doing. So just really diving into like the creative side of who I am. And I think that's just so crucial and important.
Is there a part where you kind of you're like, okay, I've reached the stage where I'm no longer doing track at all. I've kind of like entered in the new life, a new chapter of life completely and left it all behind. Is that where you are?
Yeah, so I'm definitely there. I think it's been maybe like a year and a half, 2 years, like
Oh,
October. When was it? When did
yeah.
I go to Chile? Sharelle.
October 2023.
Okay, yeah. So October 2023, that's when I retired. So I've been retired for
Wow.
that amount of time. And it really, I'm still transitioning, honestly, because some days you're so used to just, doing big things all the time. Like, oh, I'm winning this race and I'm going here and
Hmm.
I'm doing
Mhm.
this, something that's more, you're doing small wins for yourself. It's not so displayed.
Hmm.
So that's like a huge shift.
Oh, I like
But
that. Small wins for yourself. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
really
small
good.
wins for
Yeah.
yourself. Like I made dinner today. Like that's a win in itself. It might not be like I broke a
Yes.
Canadian record, but you know what I mean? So it's a little
Uh,
different and it's okay. And I'm happy with that and I'm comfortable with it. And that tr the transition has been hard, but also beautiful in a way because
Mhm.
I've learned a lot about myself, which is important. Like I like
mhm.
Pilates now. I still do
Right.
that.
Right.
Still been on my 3 times a week schedule. I like
Yay.
walking. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just some stuff.
I
Pilates is
think
underrated. It seems like a lot of people like Pilates, and I know Dana.
Pilates
We've
is
talked
awesome.
about.
I love Pilates. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cheryl.
Cheryl, you were gonna say, yeah, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
no, sorry. I was just gonna say something similar that I guess both you, Kira, and Meimei shared was that your family and you felt like you had like a huge support system behind you. And I feel
Mhm.
like that part kind of made it harder for you. Me, weirdly enough, like my family was like, "Oh, like good job," but they were never like, "Oh my gosh," like on me like that. So I felt like it was easier for me to kind of just be like, "I'm gonna just like." I know a lot of people at my school. I can remember like my friends and like my school standing behind me, like, "When you go to the Olympics and you're gonna remember us," and da 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 da. And like I just didn't really want to take on that pressure, so I just chose not to. I think it is different though if your family is also involved with that. It's like constantly on there
Mhm.
usually like my family was just like not invested like that. So I felt like it was easier for me to kind of be like, I'm also doing this, but every once in a while they'll be like, wait, what's going on with track? Like, but I feel like definitely having other things that you're able to have as an outlet, you cannot make one sole thing your whole lifeline. I think that is crucial. That is very important because if it breaks, it bends, anything like that, then you might feel like you
Hmm.
completely lose yourself. So making sure that
Mhm.
you do things that you are not necessarily like super strong and passionate about, but just something that you enjoy as well. I
Yeah.
think that's very crucial.
Hmm.
And what was that for you?
Oh my gosh. I think community building, just being around different people, exploring. I think my first year in the summer, I stayed on campus at Harvard and I was one of the orientation committee leaders for the class of 2023. And through that, I learned like so many skills in terms of like event planning, community building, just that
Mhm.
I kind of like stayed on in a similar role throughout the rest of my time while I was there at college. And then through that, I learned like I genuinely love event planning, curating events, bringing people together, also taking on different like leadership positions and being able to kind of like speak to administrative figures and advocacy and whatnot. Just really learning all that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and obviously those things take so much time. I know my coaches were probably upset because I wasn't just as focused on track anymore. But I was happy that I was able to do it because like at the end of the day, in the back of my mind, especially having that kind of frustration during my first year, I was like, you can't run forever.
Mhm.
So it
Hmm.
is important. You can't do anything forever, especially sports wise. So I was like, it is important to find those other things that you're also passionate about. So yeah.
No, agreed.
Right.
Makes sense. And Mimi, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Sharelle's being humble. When we were at Harvard, she took on a ton of leadership roles in different organizations, and I was always surprised to hear like how many extracurriculars. And she was always very humble about it. I would like catch up with her once a month or so, and she would invite me to an event she's running or something, and I always just thought it was really cool. I think Sherelle, you should share what kinds of leadership roles you took on.
So, so I was on the dean's advisory panel. I was one of the leaders for the Black Varsity Association for the Black student athletes. Also the student athlete advisory committee. Oh my gosh, I'm literally blanking. Um, I worked in the student's office as well. So in that role, I was like the student engagement, but also like a coordinator for student events. I was in the Harvard Undergraduate Women in Business Club. Um,
That's a lot.
That's a
That's
lot.
not
Yep.
nothing.
running class committee
After-
our senior year, so I'm still like on our class 2022, our college class committee. I'm the treasurer, and then I'm a class agent for the Harvard track and field team for our class as well. So still kind of like involved in like the alumni life and like connecting people. Um,
Goodness.
and
That's
then
cool.
yes, Phoebe and I were recently brought on to be on the board of the Harvard Club of Ottawa. So now we are doing that as well. Um, they're all kind of connected though. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. So, okay,
Love that.
tell the audience what you're doing now, and how do you still stay physically active?
Do you mean professionally as well as?
Yes, what are you doing now professionally, and how do you still manage to stay physically active? Yeah.
Okay, I can go first. So, I work on Parliament Hill. I work as the communications person for MP Michael Chong, um, and I do things on the side as well. I'm a passion project of mine has always been women empowerment, and I've been getting into the energy world. So, I've been doing some writing. Policy
I read
writing.
your article. I did. I saw, that's right. I saw your
You
article.
did?
Very
Oh,
good. Yeah. Yes, I
Oh
did.
my gosh, maybe we should link that. We should
Yeah, we
we'll
should.
put it so
We
that
would.
people can
that
have
would be
access.
awesome. That would be
Yes.
awesome.
Let's do that.
It's been really fun to I went to Norway for 6 months to do research on how Canada can learn from other countries, leading countries in energy policy, and so it's been really fun to take that on as a side project, and I'm working on some woman empowerment projects on the side. Um, And yeah, I think that these things, a common theme that Sharelle, Keira, and I have all been touching on has been an ability to stretch when you narrow in your identity just on your sport, uh, it's one, all consuming, and two, the world can collapse in like
Hmm.
1 second.
Mhm.
And so I think something that we have all had to learn to do is how to disengage yourself from the environment that coaches and just, I guess, the world of sport sucks you into when you're competing at such a high level. It's not an easy thing to do because it's so rewarding to do well in your sport, especially
Mhm.
when you yourself are doing well. But I think that that's something that we have all been able to do in taking on hobbies and extracurriculars, and also just kind of like being good friends to others as well. Like that's a really important to not forget the relationship side of life as well. Um, and I guess to answer the other part of your question, um, to keep active. So one thing that I want to touch on that Keira also said that she's walking. I think I saw a video where Keira posted about being a retired athlete, and she was walking. She walked us through her athletic routine, and I'm dipping into your spiel in a minute, Keira, but she does a lot of walking on treadmills, which I think is actually super inspiring as like a retired varsity runner,
Mhm.
because I think there is stigma to get over from going from a runner to someone who enjoys walking.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so I definitely I want to hear more about that, Keira. I myself am still kind of in a place where I'm figuring out where my competitive athleticism fits in my life.
Mhm.
Uh, I need a goal to push myself. So I've been signing up for races. I've been dipping into the ultra marathon running world. I still do lifting because I feel super empowered when I can lift heavy things in the gym and it's all men around me. Um, and right now I'm actually injured again. I
Oh
haven't been
no.
injured I haven't been injured for 6 years, but I have a minor injury right now, so I'm cycling a lot.
Okay.
Take
Yeah.
it easy, Meimei.
Right.
No more 4 years of injuries. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. How about you, Keira?
Yeah, so just to quickly dip on my walking. So I haven't been running, guys, like at all. Like when I tell you I just don't run anymore. I am not lying. But one thing that really stuck with me when I was retiring is the best form of exercise is what you can do for the rest of your life or something that like you'll actually maintain. I'm not
Mhm.
going to be going out and like hurdling when I'm like 50. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like
Right.
I wasn't going to keep that same intensity in my workouts. So I really did shift to finding exercises I enjoy doing that will keep me healthy that I'll be able to do like for the rest of my life. And I found like walking to be one of them and I multitask. So when I walk, I like incline, I walk at an incline and
Mhm.
I read or I listen to a podcast or I'm editing content. So you can really like do a lot of things while you're walking. So that's one thing that I've been able to continue doing that's keeping me fit. I also like weight train. I haven't weight trained in a while and I so my husband, he's a coach at ASU, women's throws coach, and I went to go lift with his girls and like it was I was so sore the next day, guys. Like, so I want to definitely incorporate more lifting. I don't want to lose that. So that's something I am working on. But currently, um, I am not working. I was working in sales, so I was doing tech sales for a higher education company. I want to continue doing sales. I'm just going through stuff right now. So yeah, that's just where I'm at with everything I'm doing currently.
Very
Very
important
cool.
question. And very important question. And this is also a matter of safety. Do you walk on a treadmill or do you walk in nature? Because I just pictured you on your phone editing stuff and you're walking on a trail in like a forest or something and you just
Walking down
go
the street.
downhill and it's like, Kira, no. So,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I try to get it. So on Sundays, I had this thing where I'm like, okay, I try to go hike because I'm in Arizona. I'm like, this is the perfect place to be hiking, especially right now that it's like winter. So I try to get out on Sundays, but I do a lot of treadmill walking. So I'm
mhm.
just in my gym. I have it at incline. Sometimes I'll run like a light jog at incline on the treadmill, but yeah, that's and then I'm able to read and I don't have to worry about my surroundings, so that's nice. Or I
I'm gonna
also
ask.
go,
No, no, go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that I also walk around the track, like I'll do like 10 laps
Oh, okay.
and I'll be on the
Nice.
phone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I like doing that too. I'll listen to a podcast while I walk on the treadmill. My husband actually bought me one of those like walking pads. Have you seen those? They're like portable treadmill type thing, and they go up to like I think it's 4 miles an hour. But I just want to put that out there to people because like if you don't want to go to the gym to get on a treadmill, you can actually just order one on Amazon for like $150. And then
What?
you have a walk, yeah, and you just have
Not
a
bad at
walking
all.
pad. It
Yeah.
doesn't have it doesn't have like the front part with it's just a walking pad.
Okay.
You just walk
Ca-
in your living
I've
room.
Just
seen
walk in
it.
place. Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah,
it on
walk in place.
TikTok. I
It's
Like,
want
awesome.
I really
Yeah,
want one. Do you use it a lot? Even like I could see myself watching TV and just walking.
exactly. It's literally right. And because it's like light and portable, so you can pick it up and put it against the wall and put it back whenever you want to use it.
I'm
wow,
going to get one. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be so good for the office.
Yes. Yes. There are people using it to walk while they have like a raised desk or something. So they're just
Right.
walking with their
Right.
raised desk and doing their work that way. Or yeah, so you don't have to go all the way to the gym. Sometimes you can just walk at home, watch your movie. Great.
When when I was in Norway, people would attend their meetings on the treadmill. Uh,
No.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
was like,
That's
this
cool.
No
is
thing.
brilliant.
Yeah, and it like really takes a lot of it. You can't be like, oh well, I can't get to the gym today because it's like right there. Right?
Yeah.
It
No
it takes
excuses.
those kind of excuses exactly. So just wanted to put that out there if people hadn't heard of it, right? It's very, very cool, very affordable. Y- yeah, so check it out. So what about you, Sharelle?
Yeah, so I'm currently helping to do the business strategy for the Canadian Track and Field League. It's fairly new league. We're just trying to help like grow the sport and just increase engagement and just get more like funding and sponsorship because unlike track is an interesting sport in which if you go pro in track, unless like you're like insanely fast and like breaking a bunch of records, even those who go pro and get signed on to deals aren't necessarily making a bunch of money in order to like sustain their lifestyle and such. Like a lot of
Mhm.
Canadian Olympians, other Olympians from other countries have a job. So that is a hard transition, but the Canadian Track and Field League is kind of working to kind of give more opportunities and exposure to those athletes. And then on the side of that, I am also working on a startup with my family.
Awesome.
And then in terms of staying active, I currently I go to the gym with my sisters, and so it's really interesting. Like they didn't do sports or anything like that when they went to college or anything, but just kind of like teaching them like I'm not doing like insane weightlifting. I haven't done that in a while either. I would love to, but I just haven't. I'm just like doing like the different like weight exercises, core strength and stuff like that. And it's an interesting time to like be able to do it with people, but also like being able to teach them. And honestly, just being able to go with someone is so motivating in and of itself. I think that
Mhm.
was another thing about doing track was like you can't just skip practice, like your teammates are gonna be there. Like even though track is individual, like there's other people there and just like kind of like keeping you motivated and keep encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been, I guess, the guidance in terms of that. Um, yeah.
I
Very
I will
cool.
also I will also say on the point of doing things with other people, like run clubs are so fun and social, and that community aspect is, I think, super crucial in staying active and being consistent and also finding community in that. And I think that staying consistent is goes hand in hand with finding the community and having fun. Like dance classes, rock climbing, these are
Hmm.
all things that definitely when you're doing competitive sport, you can't really engage in. But also, like in an adult life, I feel like is so much more accessible and really fun to use as a means to meet other people, get out, get active, try new things, strengthen your body in different ways.
Mhm.
So yeah, especially when you're moving from place to place.
I
It's a really
agree.
good idea.
Yeah, the
Very good.
climbing gyms, I actually went to one last week for the first time and it was crazy, the community. Like there were people just trying different, routes when they were climbing, but then also like they have people cheering them on. Like it was like super supportive. And I was like, wow, this is something I could definitely see myself getting into and finding community. So I'm gonna keep doing that. But also one thing I've been doing that I forgot to add is I've been coaching, and that's been a great way
Mm.
just for me to stay in touch with track and field. So
Okay.
I've been coaching hurdles, nothing crazy, but it's been like a really good way for me to actually like be still with the sport and then transfer my knowledge. So that's been a lot of fun.
So
So
it's really
cool.
interesting for me to hear all of you talk about this. I did track and field back in high school, and I did hurdles. Not every tall person can jump really well. It's something that I had to find out the hard way for myself. So I did, and I went into long distance. And oh my gosh, I remember the one time when I did it with my brother, and at some point, for some reason in cross country, he was faster than me, and so we at some point had to run up a hill, and he told me, "You know what? I think you reached a transition point of your life. When I saw you going up the hill, like halfway through, I was like, I had both feet and both hands, like all he saw was my head coming up. You know how you kind of see the whole person's no, it was just my head just coming up, and he's like, I think it's time for you to transition to something else. So to your point, I transitioned into dancing, and so dancing is a really good way to kind of just stay active and have fun. And when I go running nowadays, I don't call it running, I call it jogging, because if I call it running, I just get tired so easily, right? But with jogging, I just feel like, oh my gosh, this is fun. I'm running slowly, but I'm running, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
find something
That's
that is
funny.
good for you and that you enjoy, because it honestly just changing the name of the game, well, slowing the game a little bit did it for me, right? So oh
Yeah.
man, the memories, the hurdles, the literal hurdles, and going up that mountain, oh man, that was, yeah. But so it's always inspiring for me to hear how you guys kind of just, you're constantly redefining what you're doing, and it's really nice to hear you, to see you transition into all of this. And so with that, one final question that we have for you was, what advice do you have for young Canadians?
I've got one. I can jump in right away. my advice would be to find community. So I think that so much of the joy of life is in relationships. And I think that you can, and also the people that you surround yourself by define a lot of who you are, who you
Yeah.
will become. And so joining sports clubs, whether it be competitive or non-competitive, finding that community, the joy that comes with sport, because there's so much joy there. It's got the physical benefits, it's got the mental benefits, and it's got the immediate like neurological benefits that actually bring you happiness in the moment and after, for hours after. Um, and and on top of that, it's an amazing it's an amazing thing if you can surround yourself by other people who prioritize their health. And I think that that will bring you very far. Sport also brings you important life skills like discipline and teamwork, independence. Um, yeah, but the community aspect, I think, is a gift.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the common theme of what we've talked a lot about is finding passion, I guess, outside of like the sport you're doing. So just finding little wins outside of what you're doing in your sport, and what you like to do and spend your time creative and just all of that. So I'd say just being multidimensional, obviously being disciplined and, doing the things you need to do to excel in your sport, but then also exploring other sides of yourself.
Um, the ones you guys both said definitely were like my top two. But on top of that, I think is continue to do things that make you happy. Like I was saying, in the past I've had like a lot of friends like Keira, similar to you, saying that they felt burnt out. They had been doing track since they were like 4, like not so much passionate about it anymore. But I think the important thing about doing something that you're going to be doing that often is like making sure that you still enjoy it. If it's not something that you're still enjoying and genuinely having fun doing, then it shouldn't be something that you are putting all your time, energy, and effort towards, because it kind of becomes your life and just makes you rethink everything. But then other aspects, obviously, it's what you guys are saying, like the community that is around you is going to help you perhaps enjoy the experience more, but also being able to do different things outside of that can also help you to actually enjoy that experience more. But just making sure it's something that you definitely want to do and not something that everyone else wants you to do, I think is very important. And it's hard to kind of differentiate that and learn that on your own, especially at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Such a
like
good point, Sherelle. Yeah. Do make sure if it's not something that you love to do, that you're not, that you have the tools to switch if needed to something, there might be another sport that you actually excel in more or like more. So
definitely. You don't have to run up a hill, I promise you. You can go drinking, you can do something else.
Jog up
You
a
can,
hill.
right? Just you can casually show up and win all of the track, all the tricks that Sharelle does, or you could go into rowing like Meimei did, right? So no, but all wonderful advice, because it's very important to find what clicks for you, and to kind of just go at it, right? To not give up. So all of your points about community, uh, uh, the external as well as the internal, I just think all of that is fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you all for being on our podcast. We're so happy you came on and told your stories. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. And also thank you, Sharelle and Keira. I will say that throughout my athletic experience, throughout the past decade, you've been an inspiration to me. And so it's an honor to be on a podcast with the two of you as well.
yes, thank you. And it was great hearing Sherelle's story, Meimei. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, you all. Thank you so much. And thank you both for challenging me, to push myself more because I really just didn't have it in me before. But honestly, being around the both of you and having similar experiences definitely pushed me for sure.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful. And finally, we really want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode, to listen all to the three of you, your inspiring stories. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Meimei, Sharelle, or Keira, or all of them, feel free to check out their Instagram pages. So for Meimei, it's at MEI_MEI33. Did I get that right, Meimei?
Yes.
Awesome. Next is Sharelle. So that is at Sharelle.Samuel. So that is SHARELLE.SAMUEL. All good, Sharelle? Awesome. Now let's go 3 for 3. So Keira, that is Kiki G Way. So that is Kiwi G Way. So that is KIWIGWAY. Yep. Beautiful. So please don't hesitate to check out their pages and also our Instagram page at Let's Move Canada for latest updates. And you can also head over to our website at Let's Move Canada, CHFI.fit to learn more about our mission. And don't hesitate to DM us if you have any questions or if you want to suggest somebody to be on our podcast, or if you want to be on our podcast. And with that, I leave all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time.